Welcome to the Jameson Files. I'm your host, Carrie Weber, and thank you for joining us once again for another episode. Thanks to our Jameson Files community for continuing to follow along with us, however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or if you're following along with us on YouTube or on our Facebook page. Thanks so much. If you're with us live today on the Jameson Facebook page, happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank you for being with us live during this busy time of the year. Today, I'm thrilled to have with me my friend, my teammate, and an amazing student and teacher of the subject we're talking about today, Amy Logan Parrish. So thank you for being with us, Amy.
Well, thanks for having me. It's my lucky day on St. Patrick's Day to be here.
For those of you that may not know Amy, Amy is our Chief Development Officer here at Jameson. She helps us lead our team in striving for excellence in the work that we do. And she also speaks on the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is customer service. This is a subject that both Amy and I think I can speak for both of us when I say we are very, perhaps a little fanatically passionate about this subject, not only for our own business, but in helping dental businesses, dental teams across the country learn how to improve their customer service, to see the value in pursuing excellence in customer service and the impact that it can have on their patients' experiences with them, and the practice's health and success overall. So the subject today is what your patients want, customer service musts for your practice. Now, Amy, I have lots of questions for you, and I think I know what most of your answers will be, but I'm looking forward to being pleasantly surprised in some of those questions. But first, I thought we could start on, because the subject is what the patients want, let's start on some studies that I have discovered and you have discovered when it comes to patients' perceptions and expectations in their experiences in the medical realm in general. I think it's safe to say a lot has perhaps come to the forefront in terms of customer service and care and has adapted through the past year. But a lot of the reasoning why those are getting such a positive response from patients remains the same over history in terms of meeting their expectations, if not exceeding their expectations, and the impact that can have on your practice or on your business. So let's start with a few of the research organizations that I have found surveys and results from and studies that they've done. Deloitte is one that does a lot of research in the medical realm about patients' experiences and the impact that has on the organizations that the physicians work for. And what they have found, they did a study on the value of the patient experience. And what they found was that hospitals that were receiving high patient-reported experiences had higher profitability overall. In addition, they were earning disproportionately more than those organizations with lower ratings. And they also found that a highly engaged staff boosted those overall experiences, which really supports what we at Jameson teach, that each and every member of your team can make or break your patient's experience. So we're not just making that up. That is founded in what they are discovering in conversations with patients, with the consumer, of what they want and need from their care. Now, in addition, in a separate research study by Deloitte, they found they were asking questions about what patients were looking for in their experience with physicians. And the results came back that they, again, were looking for customer service-oriented care. They wanted high touch. They wanted that engagement with their doctors, with their team members. They wanted high quality. So not just in the care itself, perhaps in the tools, in the technology, in the facility. They wanted and were seeking out high quality. And they wanted highly interactive, which also supports the use of technology, the use of photography, the use of elevated communication skills. These things are coming back to us from the mouths of patients. Now, in a separate study by Accenture in 2020, they were asking questions about how COVID had impacted the patient's overall experiences in healthcare. And what they found in their responses, and the patient's responses, were that their perception of their healthcare experiences during COVID were equal, if not better, than their pre-COVID experiences. Why? They found in their responses that they were really ringing the bell on receiving a better, more personalized response, a quicker response, and a more convenient access to their doctors, to these practices through new communication channels. That sounds a lot like all of the efforts you all were doing in 2020 to elevate or to stay in contact with your patients or to be more touchless in your communication with patients, the ease you were trying to find for both the practice and the patients in the season of COVID has, as a result, shifted expectations from the patients in how they realize they could now receive care or be served, and that they like that. They approve of it. So those are the results that I have found in my studies, which I thought were pretty fascinating if you're trying to look at places in your practice that you can improve, thinking about what patients are saying themselves about what exceeds their expectations, what they find to be satisfactory, and also what they want. So what have you found, Amy? I know that you do the same kind of curious research.
Well, anything with customer service always like just triggers us like, oh, what are they saying? And I had seen a great article in Forbes the end of last year where they had done some research and talked about their COVID research. When Forbes had researched with their customer service teams, they were reporting from their research pool that customers valued empathetic service above all other customer service attributes during the pandemic. They found that empathetic service above any other customer service attribute. So they were saying like our customers, for us, our patients are valuing people that are delivering service and understanding that the person on the other end of the phone or the other end of that app is someone with real thoughts, real emotions, people that were going through the same thing. And I thought that was so powerful because many times that's the bottom line of customer service, right? It's people working with people, other humans relating to each other, finding common ground, and really working to help that person feel special, heard, and understood. And so I thought that was such a powerful study to go in along with all of the other ones that you've already found.
You know, when I think of empathetic service, I think of the word connection. Making an effort to make a connection.
Right.
You know, when you have had conversations with doctors or with practice leaders, not just in this year, but over time, when you're on the road, back on the road, when you're on the road and you're with these team leaders, where do you see, or what have they shared with you may be their main struggles in helping themselves and helping their team and their practice be consistent in delivering that excellence and striving for connection with the patients?
Well, when you were talking about Accenture study that you were talking about, it was so interesting because I was like, everybody did do so much last year to provide all these amazing services, and we were able to, which kudos, I mean, amazing. Everybody was able to pivot so quickly to deliver great things. They were able to do it though, right? Because we were in this intense moment.
Yes.
It's a little bit like when you, I don't know, if you're like me, maybe you start a new workout routine or you start something, a new diet. And it is like for those first 10 days, you are on it, right? You are eating all the protein, all the vegetables, no carbs. There's no pasta to be found, right? And you are so in it. And that's how it was for us during that time. We were like, I want to give you all of the great things that I can to make your experience easier. And then what can happen is that just like me on a healthy workout regimen or a healthy diet, I start to get a little complacent. And so a lot of times what the doctors and team leaders will say is it's hard to maintain that consistency because we don't have that sense of urgency, which as any followers know, Kathy Jameson loves that quote from John Cotter, I believe. And so it's creating a sense of urgency within the team that everybody has a responsibility to this customer service piece. It is not only the owner. It's not only people that work in the business office, that we're all responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the question. How do we create that environment? How do we keep that sense of urgency and that consistency so that customer service and the strengths of the service that we provide in our practice, which are different than what you might provide in your practice, how do we keep those strengths going and being delivered every day? So that's one of the big challenges that people face. And in wanting to, how do they create that? That's one of the big questions they'll ask. How do I do that? And then they want to know, well, how do I know if it's working?
Right.
Right. I mean, so now if I can get everybody on the same page, well, Carrie, how's it actually, how do I know if it's working? And I know we both have several monitors that we like to see practices put in place. And you can look at so many things. I mean, these are just a few, but I mean, obviously, you want to make sure that you're listening to your customers. You know, if you want to know if something's working, maybe all the things that you put in place last year, this might be a great time to take a survey of your patient family. And now, more than ever, it's so easy to do that. I remember we would do surveys. We love surveys, and we would do them at Jameson. And having been here a long time, I mean, it was literally like paper surveys that I would then put in the mail and then put a stamp on it and send to doctors and say, please return. And now you can do it with something that's in your office. You can have it on a clipboard, but you can also send them a link and a follow-up email. You can send a link for them to click and complete it. You can put it on their phone. There's so many easy ways. You could take a poll or ask a question on your social media channels about, do you enjoy this or that? But asking people and asking your patients what they like, what's working for them, what they'd like to see, what they need. People that make time to ask and listen to their patients, that's how you can know if some things are working, right?
Yes.
You can also know if things are working by, easy, but what kind of referrals are you getting?
Yes.
I mean, do the patients of record that see you and have been in your patient family forever, do they enjoy working with you? Do they tell their friends and family about you? And do they tell them, maybe they mention it online, maybe they don't send them to you directly, but they've been like, oh, you should totally see my doctor, Dr. Maddox, she's amazing. And then, she didn't realize she gave a referral. She was just talking, right? Authentically, because that's her experience. And so then you come in and you're like, oh yeah, well, my friend Amy Parrish told me. Oh, great. What's that look like? Have you tracked the number of referrals that you have from patients lately, from your current patients to new patients? Have you tracked that? What's that look like? Are you comfortable with what that number is? Would you like it to be more? I mean, if you would, what does that look like for you? Sometimes that's educating your current patient family about how to refer to you, how they could do that. But other times it's an opportunity for you to look at, are we doing all the things customer service wise that we could to create that environment?
That kind of points an arrow to me at monitoring as well in general, because a lot of practices monitor new patients.
Sure.
But maybe inconsistent in monitoring where those new patients are coming from. That is important, number one, for, just as Amy has said, for us to know how our internal efforts are doing, because we want the majority of our new patients to be coming to us by way of referral. But if we don't know where these new patients are coming from, it's very difficult to measure, as you've said, the success of that. It's also important if you're doing any type of external marketing, if my teammate Nate or Dan or Casey, if they were here sitting with us today, they would tell you, the best way that you can continue to build upon the success of your external marketing efforts is to be monitoring where these patients are coming from, and to have those types of tools available and have that process in place with your team when they're taking those new patient calls, that we're getting that very valuable information for you in your practice to measure, exactly as you're saying, the success of our efforts. And I loved the word complacency that you shared, because as I was thinking about that word, I was like, oh, that is the perfect word that we're trying to battle. Because I kind of think of, in customer service, in a lot of our efforts in our businesses, in our practices, it's almost like a tug of war between excellence and complacency. And we're always going to have to be putting energy and effort for excellence to be the winning side of our day-to-day practicing lives. And in busyness, we may think, just like you said, how important it is to ask, because we may think that we're doing well in that arena in terms of customer service. We may assume that the patients are pleased. And boy, what a painful discovery to find out otherwise, because we're not asking, because we're not measuring in our own efforts, and because we aren't putting forth the continuous energy to improve customer service as one of the systems of our practice that are so integral to our success. So when you think about dental practices and the patient experience and customer service, what are maybe one or two areas that if people that are listening to this are saying, okay, well, what do I need to work on? Where could I focus my attention to really see an improvement or to be better? Are there a couple of areas that you are most passionate that practices put a priority on to develop and improve?
Well, yes, 2 or 3 or 5,000. I mean, the list could go on and on. The first thing I would say is start at the beginning. If you are like, how do I get better? What is it that we can do? I would start at the beginning. Customer service oftentimes gets the rap that like everybody knows, let's be friendly, let's be kind. That's great. But starting at the beginning is so important. So if you haven't sat down as a team and talked about what customer service means to you, your doctor has sat down and shared, this is what that means to me. And then everyone on the team, this is how we can contribute to that in support of what that looks like. That would be a great place to start. Because many times customer service is great because it can mean a lot of different things to different people. But if we don't have that baseline about where we're all going, we can't go there together. And so I think that would be a great first step. The other thing that we have done that I know has been very powerful for us, and I know Carrie would attest to that, is when we have new members of our team join us, we have them meet with our owners, your doctors, the first day of employment for X amount of time. For us, it's an hour. For you, it might be 15 minutes. It might be 30 minutes. But to start their official journey with you as a team member, as a part of your practice, about this is why you are here. And here is our expectation of that. And I know that has been really powerful for you all as owners to do with all the new team members, because there's no confusion about what that means in terms of how we're going to deliver great customer service, how you're going to represent the brand that is XYZ practice. And as a team member coming on, wanting to do a good job in this position, I now know I don't have to guess what the expectation is, and I have a better understanding of who I am and how I contribute to that. That also goes to several of the things you were saying in those studies about engagement, that customer service is better delivered by an engaged staff, engaged team. Well, I'm more engaged when I have a better understanding of what that looks like to you. And I can deliver that in a better way. And so start at the beginning, both as a team, what that looks like. And then as you have new team members joining you, make that a priority to start. I think it all begins at the beginning. So that would be a couple of first things. Obviously, we would never have any conversation about customer service at Jameson Management if we did not mention our best friend, the marketing tool to the world, as Dr. John Jameson would say, the telephone. If you want to get started on what customer service looks like, that is a great place to sit down and examine. The telephone it's the window to the world. And at that moment, as a person that answers the telephone at Jameson Management, I know that I take a lot of calls of people that might be looking for information that doesn't even relate to us, perhaps. And I know that I might be sending them on to another preferred, partner or another resource in dentistry, and they may never do work with us. And yet I want them to be able to say that they were treated well, were given the information they needed in a timely and prompt manner, and that we were friendly and gracious and all the things that we want to be to represent our brand. Well, that's the same for you. That telephone at that moment, you are the practice to them. And that can be something that becomes incredibly complacent because there is so much happening around you. That cannot be complacent because the power of that telephone is so important. Your verbal skills, the way we communicate, the way Carrie and I talk to each other when we are not at work and hanging out maybe in our neighborhood would be very different than the way I would speak to her perhaps on the telephone or the way we would speak to you on the telephone. I'm going to try to eliminate a lot of my filler words, and I'm not going to ask you to hang on a sec. I'm going to place you on a brief hold. Those powerful words, the way we elevate our words, are so important. And again, if maybe you have team members that are working in the business office, answering the telephone, and they're new to your practice or new to dentistry and maybe have never had telephone skills training, let's invest in that for them because that allows them to ultimately fulfill your vision, the practice goals, and serve the patients better when they can have that kind of training. So, I mean, I feel like that's like 3 or 4 things that are coming off,
so
but
good,
I mean, I don't, do you have anything you'd add on that?
We could go on for
with the telephone, you know. So.
But I'll just say this, that all of the things that Amy's talking about all really wraps itself up in awareness. And having a heightened sense of awareness of where you even are right now in terms of as a business team member and how I can handle myself on the telephone, how I'm handling those phone calls. Am I getting so wrapped up in how busy the day is? And I trust us, we have heard all the reasons why you have yet to be successful with those new patient phone calls. We've heard them. And the thing that I want to encourage you to do is, as a team, if you're the practice leader, if you're the doctor, or even if you're that business team member that needs to improve those skills, that we have to have that time that Amy emphasized about sitting down together and identifying what ideal is as a team to you of that patient's experience from the very beginning of their first interaction with you all the way through that journey, and where we could be better, and then work on that. Having a safe space where you can bring up, perhaps even personally, where I know I could be doing this better, but I don't know how. I just had a conversation with a young professional that was new to her role and said, I know I can be doing this better. I'm young. I want to be taken seriously. I want to be more successful in this. So that awareness and her willingness and openness to be taught, to work on that, to be coached, even if it's just by teammates, is going to, without a shadow of a doubt, she's going to get better.
Oh, for sure.
Because that awareness is there. She knows what she wants to work on, where she could improve, and she wants people to help her improve. And so if we as a team rally together and recognize an awareness of we know we may be doing a lot of things well, and we should celebrate that for sure. But we know we could be better in these areas. Let's sit down. Let's work on this. Let's practice. Let's troubleshoot where we get stuck so that we can indeed improve. And that all begins with the telephone. You know, one of my favorite teachers and favorite books, by the way, is Horst Schulze, who is the former COO and president of the Ritz-Carlton. I do talk about him maybe too much, but I love how they have fanatically pursued excellence, not just in how they work to continuously deliver high levels of customer service in their organization, but how they continue to study what the consumer wants. And then they take what they learn and they apply it to their businesses and apply it to the training. And just as you said, the setting of expectations with their employees and their team of what that looks like, what high customer service in their organization, in the Ritz-Carlton, looks like. And that's what everybody pursues. You know, Chick-fil-A is another one that people talk about a lot. And I have some friends that when they were younger worked at Chick-fil-A, and I actually will ask them questions. Oh, how did they train you? How did you learn to deliver that kind of excellence that they have such a high reputation for? And my friend that I asked that question to, he said, he goes, yeah, they had videos and everything. He goes, but it was just that everybody did that. Everyone on the team that's just what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was being mirrored by example everywhere. To the point that the unit, if you didn't step up and deliver that high level customer service that they're known for, you stood out in the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
So they were probably attracting people that wanted to provide that kind of service, first of all, and were hiring people with that type of potential within them. But then also they were rising to the occasion of what was being reflected as the example of excellence in that organization. The same can be true for you. So as we wrap things up, Amy, I know we could talk forever, but let's think about this. So we've talked about some areas that they could focus on. We've talked about some ways that they could measure if they are achieving the kind of excellence and the goals that they would have in their vision for customer service in their practices. And we've talked about what some of those biggest concerns are. But how do we, as practice leaders, as business leaders, that really feel like you're carrying that flag of continuous excellence in service, how do we keep that a priority in the development of our team? Yeah. And how do we continue to successfully win the battle against that complacency? What do we need to instill in our businesses?
Well, I would say that you mentioned this, I think, earlier, a priority. What priority is customer service going to be in your practice? And when you make it a priority, what does that look like? I can say it's a priority for us, but if I don't live that out here, what are my teammates thinking? So that means pretty much we have every month, we have a meeting. It's called LEAP, and it's our team-wide meeting from all across the country. And every month, when we start those meetings, we go back to our mission and our purpose and our core values. And then we always have something where we talk about the customer service, whatever that is. I mean, it might be 5 minutes of sharing a great client success story. It might be 5 minutes of talking about a new service we're going to roll out and how that can help people, but we make time for it. So where are you making time? Are you putting it as an agenda item on your team meetings every month? Are you having those brain trust meetings that we encourage for you to do that are longer meetings, maybe quarterly, where you sit down and you might be there to talk about big things, goal setting for the year, or you bought new equipment and you're going to have talk and training about that. Customer service should be on your agenda every time that you meet as a team, every time. That makes it a priority and that helps it to become consistent. And when it becomes consistent, it starts to manifest itself in lots of different ways, not only with the patient, it manifests itself because the whole team is now going in the same direction. And so everybody's contributing to what that looks like. Oh, Susan came up and Mrs. Jones just left. Susan, told me in the business office, hey, Susan just said that, her dog died. And I just thought it might be nice if we just dropped her a little note in the mail. Susan took that on because she knew that was something she could do to have an interaction with that patient that would go above and beyond. It's what Ken Blanchard called in Raving Fans, that little bit more every single time. That's a little bit more example. So where are all those moments for your little bit more that you can do? And then when the whole team is doing it, it's not only the doctor. It's not only one person that maybe is like the champion of customer service. It's everybody taking that on. That is how you are keeping it consistent and making it happen. And when you do things like that, drop a note, say hello, whatever it may be. That's going back to that study we talked about from Forbes that, empathy. What a great, that's what you're doing. You're creating that kind of connection. So I think that prioritizing it is so important and talking about it and having it be something that you're all consistently looking at, studying, and talking about. I know that most of the people that do follow us and work with us, you all have great customer service. That is true. So for so many of you, it isn't about, okay, we're not doing well. You are. It's about making that time to keep that fanatic curiosity up and to become obsessive about the details. And another great book that we love on customer service, Broken Windows, Broken Business by Michael Levine. That line is in that book about, I think it says something like the details, the devil may be in the details, but the details are pave the way to success. And like customer service is one of those details to be obsessive about. When you're not thinking about it in those terms, it can be easily something that goes by the wayside. And hey, every day is not your top customer service day. I mean, everybody has a day, right? Everybody has a moment that they're like, I wish I could have done that again. But when you have the awareness, that's the difference. You are aware and you're like, I want to do that better. And you will the next time. But it's becoming aware of that. So I think prioritizing is so important. I think putting it on your team meeting agenda. I think providing that continual opportunity for study and growth, and making sure that everybody on the team understands it's their responsibility are a few things of how we can keep it consistent and keep it growing.
I love that so much. And so I hope that you've taken a gem or two from this conversation. Amy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's great.
Ask yourself 2 questions. How can we make it as easy as possible for our patients to receive what they want or need? And then ask yourself this: if I were a patient in our practice, would the experience I receive here be exceptional? Would I consider it exceptional in my mind's eye? If the answer is no to anything about that, those are areas that you can improve and focus your energy. So be about the business of prioritizing time, as Amy said, making time for the excellence you ultimately want to see in your practice and in your relationships with your patients, and watch your practice grow and thrive in the healthiest and happiest way. If you want to learn more from me or from Amy on customer service and the patient experience, you can find us both on the patient experience pathway on Jameson's Grow online learning platform. That's grow.jamsn.com. We'd love to continue being fanatical students about customer service with you. So I hope you'll join us. Thanks for being with us today on the Jameson Files. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Jameson Files. Visit us online at jmsn.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, or Spotify. Do you have questions or topics you'd like for us to answer or cover on the next podcast? Email us at podcast@jmsn.com.